Hello, this is Jamey Scott for designingsound.org. Let's see, today I am going to discuss workflow, and this is going to be a demonstration of how I organize my sessions for medium to large mix sessions, specifically in this case, game cinematics. This could work for feature films, but in general, with bigger films, you're probably going to want to use a dubbing deck, depending on how powerful of a computer you have, or if you have multiple computers, or if you have a small film or a big film. There's many variables that determine what kind of workflow you should use. But in this case, I'm going to talk about a medium-sized game cinematic. And what I do here, I've got the open dialog box in Pro Tools HD. And what we're looking at is 5 sessions here that I use. And I basically do a STEM-based workflow. So I have my dialogue, I have my background stem, I have my Foley stem, and I have my FX stem in this particular mix. So usually I start out with my backgrounds, and so I'm going to open up that background session. So here it's opening up. Now, one of the things that I do is have everything that's stem related in a single session. So I'm just going to consolidate this and make sure that you can see everything here. And so I've got my movie blocked out. This is I use a satellite LE, and my picture is on another computer. It's on an LE system. Actually, now it's on a Pro Tools 9 system. But using that workflow, you can bring in an offline video track from the satellite session, and that'll just basically give you an offline media of the movie, and you can block out your start and end points and do all of your marker stuff using that as a guide, which is kind of handy. And then when you mix down, you can just select the whole thing, and then you'll have your timings for your final bounce out. So in this case, this is not a big session, so there's not many scene changes or anything like that. So the backgrounds are very, very minimal. So I usually have a bank of mono backgrounds in my template that I have bus to a single mono mixer, and sometimes I pan those center, or I'll have center with a little bit of a left-right bleed. But in general, I use this for specific kinds of mono backgrounds, but I also have a bank of 4 or 5 little panning mono tracks so that I can move things around in the world. This case, it's just some stagnant background. So I've got a combat thing, and I've got a rumble, and this is like a cold wind kind of thing, and then just some ambient wind grass. Now all these have different volume graphs and things. So if I actually have a scene change and I want to change the dynamics of the background, I'll graph that in volume. And then I have all of that stuff bust from the stereo tracks into over here, which is bust to a master group, which is down here, which is my background master. And this is where I do my final limiting and my ins and outs and all that stuff. And then I have a print track. When you do this kind of workflow, you can use destructive record, which is up here. And I usually do that because I bring these final mixes into my final mix session, which I'll open right now, which is this final mix session here. And I have stems in the mix. Now, normally on a bigger film mix, I'm going to be doing this on a dubbing system. So I have another system entirely that consolidates all my stems, and I mix from that. But in this case, my background stem is going to be right, it's going to be right here. So when I do my final print, I'm actually sort of ballparking things. And when I go into mix, then I do EQ grafting. I have some automation of like I'm pulling out some high frequencies and just cutting down some rumbles and things in the backgrounds and specific things. Usually when I'm carving out dialogue, I'll do something like that. And then I've got my volume grafting and that kind of thing. So, and that goes with all of my other stems. Here's my Foley stem right here, and on my dialogue one, these are muted right now because I was doing M&Es, but unmuted, there's my dialogue track, and I had to do some lip syncing. So here's my effects, and I do a lot of leveling and that sort of thing just to make sure that the dialogue is all clear. And then here's I did a 2-track composite on this one, and then I spread it out to the 5/1s because I didn't get 5/1 stems on this, so I just sort of did a makeshift 5/1. And then I master that all, and then here's my final mix, and then I do a center channel mix of that for localization and for the clean version of the dialogue, because this particular project there's a lot of swearing, so I had to do that extra workflow on that. And then I've got my master meter that I just sort of use to keep an eye on my levels. And I'm going to go close out this and I'll go into the effects session. Now, one of the advantages of using this is that it keeps your sessions small, and opening up multiple sessions takes, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 30 seconds, as opposed to opening up very large sessions. Sometimes I do this workflow where I'm working on stems, and then I bring it into, bring all of the tracks into a larger mix. But as you can see, we've got quite a few tracks here, and some of these are stereo, and there's a lot of voices that go into something like this, so that when you're doing big effects mixes and big dialogue mixes and stuff like that, it's easy to exhaust the machine's capabilities. So I tend to like to work in this smaller workflow just to keep things manageable. And so in this session, I have well, let's take a look here. I'm gonna open up my mono effects track, and here I've got this particular one is for a very large beast. I don't know if my audio is plugged into this recorder, but so there's some helicopters and beasts and all kinds of stuff. Now I have essentially 4 kinds of blocks for my effects in here. I have my mono effects in this bank. This is I just call this FX M1, and then I have an A, B, C, D, and it can get big. I can have up to double Z's in here. I've had many tracks in my primary effects, but these are all mono based effects. So that's my first mono bank. Okay, so I'll clear that off, and here's my second mono bank. Now this is I got another track in here. This has some rifle fire. On this one, I had to use rifle fire from the game, so I didn't do custom stuff. I just sort of overlapped a lot of the fire that I had to use from the game. So there's some explosions, just some effects things that I do, and then a helicopter. So that's that, and then I've got that all bust down to a mixer that goes to the final master. So there's my second mono effects bank, and then I've got my stereo effects banks, which are, I use things like explosions and whatever effects that I need, and so there's only one section that I have in here. If I solo these here, you can hear what this is. Just a big explosion. So that's just one section of where there's a big helicopter landing sequence. Okay, so that's that for my stereo 1. Here's my stereo 2. And this is, more helicopter stuff, some explosions. There's a big monster in this scene. So I think these are sweeteners that I added for the footsteps. So there's that. And then I have a bank of panning effects, just like I do in my backgrounds. But these are for more specific things. These are, bullet ricochets and that kind of thing. In general, they're pretty dynamic. I pan around the room, bullet ricochets and that kind of thing. So that's that. And then on my master, I have my sub, which I route things globally to a single sub source so that I don't overwhelm my sub. I keep it really controlled. And I'm using low air, which is awesome, and a little limiter just to keep things safe. And then I have my final LFE splitter and then controller. And then I, of course, just like in the backgrounds, I bounce this down to a single track from my master. And then I bring that into the mixer session. And whenever I need a change, I actually go back into this effects thing. Like, say, if this thing is out of sync, I'll move it and then reprint the effects. In fact, you can set your ins and outs here, reprint the effects in destructive mode, and then just go back and the changes will be reflected in your master session. So that's one way to do that. And just as a real quick refresher, here's my Foley. So just to show you how I set up my Foley sessions, it's basically like my effects, but a little bit more bare bones. Sometimes I have 12 Foley banks. Sometimes in this one, it wasn't very complex, so I just had 2. Sometimes it can get this session can get very, very deep, depending on how many characters are on screen, the requirements of the scene, how long the reel is, or how long the cinematic is. But this can get pretty big. So in my Foley, I usually print to an LCR because I don't normally mix any kind of Foley in the surrounds or sub or anything like that. So I usually have a pretty solid LCR mix. And again, I do all my destructive recording, and all of these things are, either walked Foley or just stuff from the game that I piece together. I just sort of, I don't sequence it. I just sort of eye it and then, do like cloth in betweens and that kind of stuff. Comes out pretty realistic. So there's that. And one more time in the, there's actually a dialogue session for here, which I'll just open up for goodwill here, which I don't think there's much. I think there's like 4 lines in this whole thing. Yeah, 4 lines in a single effort. So it's not a big deal. And this stuff came to me really mastered hot. And I think our dialogue spec was like 0 dB or something crazy like that. So it's loud, but these scenes are also very loud. So it looks a little crazy here. But it is what it is. So, and then I bust that to a single mono track. Normally I would, if I were doing a film, this would be an LCR bounce. But in games, particularly UE3 games, I do mono because if there's any left and right bleed, then that makes it difficult for localizing. By localizing, we just swap out the center track and keep it simple. So by doing it that way, we save a lot of memory, and it doesn't sound as awesome and full as it would in a feature because you don't have the left and right, but do what you gotta. So there's that. And then just as to wrap it all up, I'm going to open back up my final mix again. And there you have all of the stems as they were produced in the other sessions lined up. So there's my music and my effects, my dialogue, and it's all printed. And I just basically, when I print it, I just export the selected and send it to my clients. And that's it. I hope you learned something. Have fun. Bye.